Hi, my name is Catherine Flowers. Everybody calls me Cat Flowers. I am a private investigator of 25 years. I have my own small private eye agency in North Carolina, and recently I just embarked on another platform, which is a PI Leadership Academy. I'm originally from New York. I grew up in New York, small town, very small town. In fact, there were only about 6 black people in my whole high school, small town. So we all were very, very close, but I just grew up around a really, really competitive, very competitive group of people. But we felt at that time, as in the early 80s, a little bit smothered, a little bit overwhelmed. In the school that I grew up in, we were bullied a lot. We were bullied because we were not only just minorities, but we were micro minorities. I mean, even if all of us got together and banded together, there weren't enough of us to do anything. We couldn't affect any change. I mean, we would sit around and plot, but we never could come up with much. So as a result of that, we just decided to stick together and really just be a cohesive unit at school. We were certainly a united front. But things were happening to us at school, like the school newspaper. They did a feature with Pebbles and Bam Bam, and it really was a very sarcastic look at the black people in the school. I mean, they literally put bones in our hair and stuff like that, and they compared us to like Neanderthals. So then we felt even further alienated on top of being this micro minority. And that is one of the driving forces for all of us to say, number one, we want to get out of here. We all want to go to black schools. And then secondly, we're going to be something. So we all decided we were going to go to black schools, historically black college. But the problem was we had never been to any. We didn't know where they were. We didn't know how to find them. Our parents came up in the civil rights era. So our parents, pretty much all of our parents had come in from the South and moved up north for better opportunities. So when we teach our kids about the civil rights migration and the Great Migration and how people had to get out of Jim Crow South, it wasn't that long ago. My mother did that. She came from North Carolina picking cotton. And part of the reason why she left is because she would pick cotton all day. It was like sharecropping. She'd pick up cotton all day, and at the end of the day, they put your cotton on a scale. And if your cotton doesn't weigh enough, then you don't have enough money to pay for your cigarette or your lunch. So you end up owing your boss at the end of the day, even though you worked your heart out. So my mother was like, this is not gonna work. It's not gonna work. So she called her aunt, whose name was Catherine, who I'm named after. I'm named after Catherine. Catherine gave her some fake references, right? And then my mother got a job as a domestic worker, working for some millionaires. I mean, how crazy is that, right? So if you've ever heard of Jacuzzi hot tubs, my mother was working for the Jacuzzi family. I mean, how crazy is that? She's working for the Jacuzzi family. So they had 3 children of their own. And here I am in all the pictures. You look back at them now, I have to show you one. I'm this little black dot in the picture of all the pictures. I'm sitting there like this. This little black girl in the middle. I literally thought I was a part of the family, right? So I grew up on this huge, I don't want to call it a plantation, but it was a mansion. And we had like detached garages, attached garages, tennis courts, pools shaped like hearts and everything like that. But one thing about my mom, she was so strong. She always had her own little place. She's like, I never want to depend on anybody to the point where I have to stay here. I always want to have my place. But my mother raised me as a part of the nucleus of this family. And I said to myself right then and there, number one, I like nice things. But number two, I'm going to make my mother proud one day. And that was after I got finished showing my ass as a teenager, like everybody else. About 1920, I decided I'm going to turn it around. So I get to my black college, and the way I got there is there used to be this, the book of colleges. I can't remember the name of the book of colleges was, but I opened up the book of colleges and just slapped my name down on the book, and I was like, Mom, is this okay? She's like, yeah, that's okay. I was like, well, take me there. So she dropped me off. She gets to the college campus. It wasn't a tour. No, this is your one stop. This is your only stop. This is it. Either going here or you ain't going anywhere. And I said, Mom, can I go to another school? She's like, nope, this is it. This is your choice. And I'll never forget, she told, it was an Episcopalian HBCU, historically black college. The girls had their dorms, boys had their dorms. And she told Father Burke at the entrance, I'll see you in 4 years. That meant don't bring your ass back home. You ain't coming back home. You don't have a home to come back to. I will see you when you graduate. That's it. And she meant that. She never came back to my school until graduation day. If I wanted to get off that campus, you better catch a bus, I'll meet you at the Greyhound station, but she's not going to come get you. And my mother made too much money to pay for my college education. So she had to do what's called an agreement, which is when your parent has to pay a couple $100 a month. I felt so bad about my mother having to work to pay for me to go to college that I was like, I got to figure something out. I can't let her continue to make these sacrifices from, here on in. She's been taking care of me all life, and now she's still paying for me. I really, really started to feel guilty about how much time and energy she had invested in me and my education. When I was younger, I had dyslexia or whatever. She went and got other jobs, scrubbing floors, in addition to that one job, scrubbing floors, so she could get me the tutors that I needed so I wouldn't fall behind. And I'm just like eternally grateful because I'm her only child. So I get to the college campus and I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna show my ass. I'm gonna show not just some of it, my whole ass. I'm just gonna walk around like I just don't care. I hate to tell you everything I did, but I'm gonna tell you something. I would show up at my 8 o'clock class with a doggone 40 ounce. I would already have a 40 ounce in me before I got to the 8 o'clock class. And I would be up in there just thinking I knew everything. I'm from New York, I'm smarter than everybody else. This is back in the Run DMC days, you know what I'm saying? I had my gold on, my earrings, my nameplates, rings on every finger. I was running around there looking like a little thug. So anyway, so one day, I said to myself, I was like, I'm gonna stop doing this. I'm gonna stop doing all the things that I'm doing that are bad. I'm gonna stop drinking before my 8 o'clock class. This is headed nowhere. Really, I got a letter telling me that I was on academic probation. And I knew I couldn't come home. So I was like, I better get it together. So I got it together, man. And that's when I joined the ROTC program and I decided that no. I decided I was gonna be a private first, because I didn't know about the rank structure. So I joined one summer and as an enlisted soldier, and I had to dig foxholes, trenches, eat bugs for a whole summer in Anniston, Alabama. And then I realized there's a rank structure, that if I go back to college, I can actually be an officer. I can go from being this slick sleeve private to an officer. And within 3 years, I went from being a private, saluting people at the gate as a military police officer, to coming back through the gate and having the same people that were in my basic training now saluting me. Now I'm at the officers club dancing next to my commander, and I'm just like, hey, it's me. So I made it, right? So I felt really good about that. And then once I got there, I realized not only during the summers when I came back to college, not only can I just get my commission, I can excel at this. I can go to Airborne School. I ended up going to Airborne School. I went to Airborne School. I did not go to Air Assault School, but I just went and just started to suck up as much information and knowledge as I could to make my mother really proud. I was the only child. So everything she had was all banking on me. And I said, I'm just gonna do it, and that's what I did. So by the time I graduated from college, I had a job with the Department of Correction till I did my officers corps, my officers class. That was all strategic. I knew I was gonna take that course until I could get into the police academy. But when I got accepted to police academy in 1992, there was only one academy per year. There were only three black females in my academy, and out of the 3 black females, all of us graduated, but there were only 21 cadets out of that 1,000 applicants. So we had to be high speed, low drag. You either had to be in or you were out. So I ended up getting on the police department and making my mom extremely, extremely proud, and making her really, really happy to know that she raised somebody who not only became a law-abiding citizen, but became really a beacon, because I was able to excel to the point where I was able to overcome such odds as being selected out of 1,000, down to the 21, down to the 4, and then actually graduating. So then I started getting my momentum, my mojo. So I started doing drug campaigns, undercover prostitution campaigns, all kind of,
Can I just ask you
Sure.
just one question? So you ended up becoming an officer, or a police officer, and I think you did military police, right?
Mm-hmm.
So was there a driving force of why you wanted to go into law enforcement in the first place?
Because I was nosy. I was nosy. I would always see the yellow tape and I would always be like, what's back there? And just sheer curiosity. I always wanted permission to go behind the yellow tape. It's just that simple. What's going on behind that tape? I want to know. I want to know. And to this day, I'm a true crime junkie. I spend all my time watching every trial out there. We go to sleep watching trials. Ask me a trial question, I can tell you. Ask me a question, I can tell you. So I'm really, really passionate about it. So I know that that was the right major for me because it's something that I eat and I sleep and I drink.
So when did you start as a military police officer? What year?
Sure, so that would have been actually probably 89.
Okay.
89.
And what were your experiences as a military police officer? Where were you stationed? What did you do? What were your duties?
Very good question. So I got my commission in 2020, when I was 22 years old, right after I graduated from college, right? So at that time, there were several wars that were going on. We had Desert Storm going on. We had Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and being my mother's only child, she really didn't want me to go overseas because people were dying, right? And we didn't know exactly what the Iraqis were going to do to these citizens. So I intentionally decided that I was going to join the police department and stay in the reserves so that I could fulfill my duty, but also maintain stateside service and kind of do both at the same time. So that's what I did. Even though those wars were quick, I was in training. I was on active duty where some of those skirmishes happened. And you have to be able to deploy within 18 hours. And although I was a female, I was still my mother's only child. And she really didn't want to see me go into a war zone. So out of respect for her, I did not intentionally pursue that kind of active duty service in a war zone.
Okay. So what kind of duties did you have as a military police officer?
Sure, I was a platoon leader. So as a platoon leader, you're in charge of about a platoon, needless to say. So that's about 40, 50 people. And it was my job to give them plans, manage operations in the field, but most of all, to be a leader, right? And to be a real leader is to be a person that puts everybody else in front of them. And also one thing that the ROTC taught me is leadership excellence. You lead by example. Nobody wants to follow somebody that they can't see who's willing to make the sacrifices and to be a true leader. And I really can't put a price tag on that training because even when I started my PI business later in the years, I don't ask anybody to do anything I wouldn't do. And I've had people do that to me. But to this day, you will never hear me dispatch or assign an investigator to any task that I myself would not go to because you lead by example. And that's to me, that's what a good leader is. Somebody that says, pick up your rock and follow me. Not go in front of me, follow me because I'm going to lead you the way. And to me, that's leadership excellence.
And so in 1992, you go through, is it the police academy at the time? Is that what they call it?
Yeah, the police academy.
Okay. So what kind of training did you get in 92? And what department were you initially get hired on with?
Sure. So I was brought on with the Raleigh Police Department in 92, and we got 52 weeks of training, which is really excellent training. Yeah, really good training. So a whole year before you even talk to a citizen. And after 52 weeks, you're still talking to a citizen with a supervisor with you.
So what kind of training of that year? I mean, that's a lot of time. In that year, what kind of training did they do?
Okay, great. So we did physical training, which wasn't a problem for me because I'd already been doing a lot of PT in the military. So we did physical training, we did firearms training, we did conflict resolution, we did sexual assault investigations, we did drug training, we did report writing. I mean, pretty much the full gamut of, we did crowd control, riots. We also did some one-on-one, hand-to-hand combat. Like really, just because you were a female in the academy, you had to go into a boxing ring with a male and literally slug it out. I mean, they had an ambulance there waiting for us, but that was the first time I got popped square in the nose. I got punched dead in the nose, bruh. I didn't realize that it makes you cry involuntarily. And I was like, I'm not crying. And tears around, I was like, I'm not crying. But yeah, it's funny. But yeah, so we did a lot of hand-to-hand combat. It was challenging. It was challenging because some of this stuff we went to was really confrontational. They call you all the names and bully you and stuff like that because they want to see how you're going to react before you get on the street.
And so once you started patrol,
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that that's what you started as patrol. What were your day-to-day?
Sure. So my day-to-day, like the city that I grew up, well, the city that I worked in was very segregated then. It was segregated without words, but rather with boundaries, right? So it was segregated into 4 quadrants. You have the south side, which is where all the black people live. You have the west side, which is where all the college students were. And then you had the northeast and northwest. That was pretty much all white people, right? So a young rookie cop, where do you want to work? You want to go to the action, so you want to go to south side, right? South side was good, south side was fun, but I learned a lot of bad stuff on the south side, meaning that there was a lot of civil rights being violated on the south side. And that presented its own set of challenges to me because there's a blue wall, and it's you don't want to cross that wall. But it became a real conflict for both me and some of my dear friends to this day because we watched a lot of black people have their civil rights violated, and that's just not okay. It's not okay then, and it's not okay now. And I still have it happen to me today, and I just don't appreciate it. But it's real.
So let me ask you a question about that. How was that? How is it being a black officer and seeing that going on, but yet kind of this blue wall?
Right.
What's the tug and pull going on with you at that point?
Well, you have to think to yourself that I was only 22 years old, right? So here I am, 22 years old, and I saw things that, I'll give you an example of some of the things I saw. So we would ride double, because at this time the Clinton administration was being overwhelmed by drugs on the street, and there was a real campaign to get the drugs off the street, and rightfully so, because there was open air drug market on every street corner in South Raleigh. I mean, to say that it wasn't so is not true, right? But the Constitution gives us a rule book, and that's our rule book, and we have to follow the rule book. But, because people are uninformed of their rights, the internet wasn't like it is right now. You couldn't go to YouTube and say, what are my rights? So, some people just didn't know their rights. And so I would watch, I ride double with a police officer, and he'd say, hey, follow me. And you're walking up like, I don't really know what's happening. I'm 22, 23. And he would say to a black person, sir, can I have your ID? What for? Well, this telephone booth has been used for drug transactions, and you're standing at this telephone booth. Can I have your ID? And the guy would be like, well, either yes or no. But either if the answer was no, we'd end up in a fight. And if the answer was yes, we still end up in a fight because chances are he might be dealing some of those drugs. So it was just going in and just knowing. And it's a real conflict because you say to yourself, that didn't feel right. But am I big enough to say something? So what we would do is we would get off duty, the black officers, and we would call up the other black officers on the phone, and we'd say, hey, I work with J.K. Smith today. Man, don't work with that cat. That cat is shady. I seen him. We chased the guy today. The guy had an 8-ball of crack. I saw it fall out of his pocket. Smith gets up and all he has is a pebble in the bag. Something happened to that rock. I mean, that rock is gone. I'm telling you, it wasn't even enough to drug test. So you know that people are shady. But you're like, I know I saw that. So are my eyes lying? Am I crazy? But at the end of the day, you don't want to work with that officer anymore. So what we did was we kind of formed an allegiance of who's safe with us to work with on the streets so that we could kind of stay away from that. I want to share a situation with you which is really, really, really weird, but it's a shame that it happened. So I'm working a drug campaign, and you have this officer. His name is Lou. Really small black guy, right? We call him Stand By Lou because he would be up in the tree, and we'd be ready to jump on somebody. He'd be like, stand by, on the microphone, right? So he would tell us who's dealing the drugs, right? Because it was an open air market, and he would say, on the count of 3, I want you to guys rush in on a guy with a purple hat and the orange shirt. And we'd all jump out and rush in on this guy. Well, on this particular night, Lou said, get him. So we jumped out, tackled this guy, and the guy was all squirrely. So the officer I was working with reached into a recycling bin and took a big 40-ounce bottle and clocked this guy upside the head. I mean, his head, it was like a cartoon. You could see the stars going around his head. That thing started popping out of his head. Oh my God, think if there were body cams, it was bad. By the time we got this cat up on his feet, his head looked like Fred Flintstone had hit in the head with a brontosaurus burger. It was crazy. And I'm saying to myself, they're roughing him up. They're getting him to the police station. I'm saying to myself, man, this guy needs to go to the newspaper because they didn't have to hit him with that. That's a thick piece of glass. A 40-ounce bottle is a thick piece of glass. So I didn't say anything, and it bothered me. This was like on a Friday night. So Monday I go to work, and my sergeant calls me, and he's like, I understand that you were involved when a man got hit. So I'm like, that man did what was right. He did what I didn't do. He went to the News and Observer, and I said, yes, I saw it happen. I named the officer that clocked him upside the head. And the supervisor said to me, I'm gonna need for you to take a polygraph. I'm like, I'm the only one telling the truth. I gotta take the polygraph? He said, yeah. Sent me to Internal Affairs, had me take the polygraph. I said, well, what about the other 4 people who just happen not to be black? He said, well, it's easier for me to polygraph you than it is them. And I was like, seriously? So as I take the polygraph, I asked the polygraph administrator, I knew I passed, right? How'd I do? I can't tell you. The guy didn't even get fired. Man, that's grimy. That's horrible.
Wow. And so, how long did you worked for Raleigh Police Department for how long?
I worked for Raleigh Police Department for 5 years, and then I got injured on duty chasing a bad guy, which forced me to retire.
Okay. So, did there ever become a point in that time? I mean, obviously, you're
telling some of your experiences here. Did you ever cross your mind to go, I can't do this anymore?
I wasn't motivated. I wasn't motivated when I retired. I wasn't motivated to get promoted because my commander in my reserve unit in the Army was on the police department. I watched him be a sergeant on the police department, a black guy, and he could hardly even achieve rank. But yet the United States government sees him fit to be a captain and a commander. And I was like, there's some malarkey going on here. I mean, and he had to fight to get the rank of sergeant. When I got there, he was just a detective, and he was way older than I was. When I got there, in the history of the police department, in the history of the Raleigh Police Department, a black woman had never achieved the rank of sergeant. Okay? When I got there. When I left, I think we had our first black sergeant. I tried to get a security guard license when I retired. In order to get a security guard license, you have to achieve the rank of sergeant or above at like some kind of law enforcement agency. Since I got injured, I was a first class officer. I wasn't a sergeant. Do you know the same supervisor on the police department that made me take the polygraph was now working for the licensing board? And he lobbied the licensing board to make sure I never got a security guard license. My evaluations were impeccable, outstanding evaluations, and I had responded as the first initial officer in burglaries in progress and was able to get people in custody. But I can't get a security guard license. It is 2023, and I never got a security guard license. He went to the I appealed it to the administrative law judge, and he said she never achieved the rank of sergeant. And I told the administrative law judge, there's not been a black woman in the history of the department since its inception that has achieved this rank while I was there. And she just had a blank face. I mean, what do you do, right? I ran into that administrative law judge later on, and she said, I wanted to give it to you so badly. She said, but you just could not check the box. Now, yet I'm an officer in the military police corps, but you pigeonhole me. Now I sound like Kanye. You stop me. Now I sound like Kanye, right? You pigeonhole me. You pigeonhole me and stop me from being great. But you know what? I took that. My girlfriend told me, she said, no doesn't mean no. It means not right now. She said, it doesn't mean no. It means not right now. I said, you know what? Security guards don't make enough anyway. I'm going to focus on what I do have, and I'm going to grow what I do have, and I'm going to excel at what I can. Get in where you fit in. I went right back to the drawing board, and I said, I'm going to grow this thing. And that's what I did.
So before we get on to
what you do now and kind of how you grew that. So you were with Raleigh 7 years, is that what you said?
Five years.
5 years. 5
Mhm.
years. And so in that time, were you always a patrol person, or did you go to detective?
Sure. So I started out as patrol. Then I was adopted by a narcotics unit. So I did narcotics. It's called Clean Community Law Enforcement Against Narcotics. So I was in a narcotics. I was picked for that. So you had to be picked for that. And then after that, while I was in a clean unit, I got injured. So then I selected to go to crime prevention so that I could teach people about crime prevention. And I want to say that was probably my favorite assignment because I got a chance to go into these low-income neighborhoods and really immerse myself in those neighborhoods and become a part of the community, kind of like the police officers did in Sanford and Son, where they would just show up on Sanford and Son, and I got a chance to hang out with the children, and I would bring those kids home with me because I wanted to show those children that there's a life outside of this. Don't let this be your nucleus. To this day, those children have children and they know my child to this day. And now they see me. Those kids are now 35, 36 years old. I only have one kid, they got like 6. But I take my daughter to their homes and I make sure my daughter knows their children because I don't ever want my daughter to think that she's any better than anybody ever. And they treat my daughter great.
So let me ask you this. So you were a police officer at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Did that ever affect either positively or negatively, say, your family life or your views on society in general?
Absolutely. I mean, you start taking people to jail for some pretty nasty things. After a while, you start to say to yourself, who's innocent? If every day you're beating the pavement and taking all these bad guys to jail, you start saying to yourself, who is innocent? I mean, I had both as a police officer and then as a private investigator, I got pastors that have molested children. I have pastors that have been involved in sexual assaults. I got a guy who set an apartment on fire when I worked in this community. Little girl, I'm gonna tell you a really short story. Her name is Chastity. We called her Chaz. And since I was crime prevention, I had a little baseball team. And Chastity was like, can I come to your party? Because my job was to have community events, right? And I was like, no, Chaz, but I'll see you next week. And so I go home, get a phone call. I'll never forget, it was February 23rd. It was snowing outside, not snowing, but icy. And I get a call that there's been an apartment fire. It was Chastity's apartment. Her mother had 7 children at 29 years old. Chastity's apartment caught on fire, and Chastity died, along with 4 of her other siblings. And when the fire department got there, they tried to open the door, and she was right there at the door. And the reason why her house was set on fire was because the boyfriend was molesting the oldest daughter. She threatened to tell. So he went to the BP gas station, doused the whole place up with fire, and killed 4 of the 7 children. And all I could think to myself was, that's my girl. I just promised her, I was going to see her next week. I was going to take care of her, and I turned her away. And after you go through something like that, you're like, who is kid? Who sets an apartment on fire with kids in it? So you see that, and yes, it certainly does jade you.
Okay, so you said that you got hurt. How did you get hurt, and what that ultimately led you to?
Sure. So I got hurt. As I mentioned, the Clinton administration was pumping money into these federal money into these communities to stop the open air drug market. But I can tell you why that's unfair on another level. But that's what was my job. So I got to work at like 8 o'clock. By 8:10, I was in the ambulance because they sent us to a neighborhood, and I was working with another young lady, another officer, and she was a DARE officer. And I was like, let me show you how it goes, right? 10 minutes later, I'm in the ambulance, right, trying to show her how it goes. I stopped this guy. All he had was one headlight out. But I get him out of his car, and then all of a sudden, I can see that he's not moving like he should. He's acting all jittery. He's acting really scared. And I'm just like, what the heck is going on with this cat? Well, what's going on is that he has 10 warrants. He hears the 10 warrants come across the radio. And by this time, I'm like, you have to go into custody. I don't have a choice, right? This cat tears off his shirt like the Incredible Hulk. I start chasing him with my shiny police shoes, and pow! I hear the whole hit a whole bone pop out of the side of the ankle right there, and it's just an open fraction. The whole bone is sticking out the side, and my foot is twisted over like the movie Misery, and I can just see my leg is straight, but my foot is touching the concrete in front of me. And when I went to take my next step, there was no foot there, so then this side of my foot, the inside of my leg, was all scraped up too. So that was my exit.
Okay. Okay, so you get hurt and you said, well, that's it. How do you decide to do what you're doing now? How do you decide to go into a private investigator?
Well, I knew of some white officers that were able to parlay their 30 years into being a PI, but I didn't know any black people, PIs. I just didn't, right? So when I first got out, I started working for a white PI, and a lot of people told me, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, but I did it anyway, and I'm glad I did do it, because even though it was a self-study, it was a very quick self-study. He had a lot of work for me to do, and I was just kind of a natural at it, and I was able to make money pretty quickly, and I was like, this is something I can do. So I kind of immersed myself in it. And after about a year of working for him, I decided I was going to break out on my own. After I asked for like a $2 pay raise, and he was like, nope, can't have it. You're going to be a failure. There's no money in this business. Take a hike. And so I packed up my ruck and hung my shingles somewhere else. And that's how I became my own PI.
So how long have you been doing it now?
25 years.
25 years. And what's a typical case, or are there any typical cases for you?
So every case is different, right? So after 25 years, I'm different, right? And so in those 25 years, I lost my mom, right? Lost my mom in 2013. And then I realized that my threshold for stress is no longer the same. I don't want to be stressed out by any client. I don't want to be stressed out by any situation. I want to kind of pour my own trouble. And that's how I manage myself right now. I've got a great husband who works with me in the business. He's a PI also. And I've got a daughter. And I had her in 2006. And she's my number one priority. And I promised my mother on her deathbed that if I do nothing else, I'm going to be a good mother to her. So now I want to make enough money to take care of my family. And I used to have 10 PIs working for me at a time, full time. That's not my formula for success anymore. My formula for success is taking my daughter to school, working a case, and if it goes into the time that she has to be picked up, my husband and I, we work it out. We get her home. One person's always home with her at all times for the most part, especially while she was growing up. So we call ourselves two PIs and a kid, because we just kind of juggle all up in the air. But we make it work.
Are there cases that you prefer to take at this point?
The ones without stress, right? the ones without stress, and then not too many of those that are remaining. But yeah, that's my preference. I like to deal with a client that has the resources to hire me, that's not second guessing me, that trusts me. Because business is about three things: do I know you? Do I like you? Do I trust you? Right? And if we can establish those three elements pretty quickly, we're good to go. But I still have people saying things to me that are somewhat condescending. Within the last 6 months, I worked a case for a lady, and this person said to me, I'm happy to pay your child's tuition. No, I'm working. What she should have said was, thank you. She should have said to me, well, gee whiz, do you have cases like this often? Instead of, I'm happy to pay your child's tuition, I'm working for my child's tuition, And even being a PI, when I first got started, I had people that would only hire me to go into black churches. Like that was my only commodity. Like I'm only good to see people. I don't take those cases. If you want to see somebody go shout, roll across the floor, stick the tongue out, that's up to you. There's another person that will go, but I can tell you it's not going to be, because my morals, my integrity, my values won't let me get somebody in a place that I think is private and private. So no, I don't take everything.
Without divulging names or anything else, any interesting cases that you've had since you've been a PI?
Oh gosh, yes. I've had a case that took me from Key West to Palm Springs to Las Vegas to Virginia to where else did we go? To California. This is all in a matter of like 3 weeks, right? Yeah. Where else did we go? We went to Yeah, I mean, we were on, it was just crazy.
And what kind of case was it that took you?
It was a domestic investigation,
Okay.
but a person had significant resources. I mean, private planes. I mean, they had all of that kind of stuff. And it was like, tell you the truth, it felt like working for Jay-Z, except when the case was over, it felt like a cruise ship and they drop you back off and you're hungry. You sit there like, man, that buffet sure was good. And you say to yourself, man, now I got to figure out how I'm going to eat. But it was an amazing, amazing experience. So I've done that. And then I've also worked for a lot of high profile physicians in my days. Some of them were doing some things illegal. I got one physician right now that was just, that's awaiting sentencing for doing, for breaking some federal laws. So yeah,
Huh. Okay. So where's your shop located?
Okay, we're in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay. And is it just you and your husband, or do you have employees now, or?
Sure, so it's me and my husband, and we have a very, my partner, the night that I got injured on the police department, he works with us. How cool is that? 25, 26 years later, he's a retired police officer. So he works with us. He does a lot of homicides, which I'm not really interested in doing. But it's just the three of us, and then we just work as much as we can, and we try to keep a good life-work balance. Because ultimately, I still have a child. That's my priority, my husband's priority. But we're doing other things now. I want to, and I've made it my personal goal, I'm self-snitching. I'm telling everything. I started the PI Leadership Academy, and the word leadership means so much because it takes me back to ROTC, leadership excellence. That's what they teach you.
So can you talk a little bit about the Leadership Academy? What do you do, and how does it work?
Sure. So in order to be a PI in the southeast part of the country and several places out in the Midwest, you have to have continuing education credits, right? So it's like the poison that nobody likes. I was talking to my husband the other day. He was like, we should be grandfathered in. We don't need it. I was like, shut up. I was like, nobody wants to do it. But it's the necessary evil, right, in order to grow. And in fact, I'm meeting you at a place where we're getting a lot of continuing education, and I thrive on that. But what I want to do, I started the PI Leadership Academy to help people to satisfy their criteria for learning and continuing their education. But I don't know everything. So I want to teach them what I do know. Some of the things that I want to share with them are some of the things that they might not want to know. Like, what is implicit bias, right? A lot of people are like, I ain't prejudiced. What do you mean, what is implicit bias? Oh, there you go with that left leaning. No, bruh, you do have some implicit bias because all of us have some implicit bias. I was stopped by a police officer, and I hate to say this, but it was by my own agency in North Carolina, right? And, I'm a little bit on the fluffy side, right? So I was drinking some sweet tea, riding down the street. I had my window rolled down, and I'm just like, I'm just sucking this tea up, and it's so good. The police officer pulled me over, and I'm like, what's going on, officer? And he's like, I pulled you over because you didn't have your signal light on long enough. I'm like, come on, man, stop playing. I'm going to send you that video. I'm going to send you that clip because I recorded it. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, that's a city ordinance. You have to have your signal light on 150 feet in a 35 mile per hour zone, 45 feet. I'm like, bro, stop playing, man. I've been driving 30 years. I ain't never heard that. He thought I was, anyway, I said, really? I've never heard of that. I've been driving like 30 years. He was like, yeah. And I was like, I'm retired from your agency. He was like, oh, well, then I really thought you were smoking some weed. Dude, you do not get to make up probable cause. There you go, violating rights again. What we gonna do about this? I can't believe you just did that. But it was his implicit bias because, first of all, if you're gonna stop somebody, have some real probable cause. If you can't, let that be the one to get away. Because law enforcement is like this. You got the good cops, you got the good guys, you got the bad guys, right? It's my job to catch you being bad. It's your job to try to get away. But don't make up stuff in the middle. And then he went on to tell me about how he's the highest. He gets more drugs than everybody else. And I'm just like, yeah, okay. But I didn't report that incident. If it wasn't for the existing police chief, who was at the time an African-American woman who I respected, I would have gone straight to the city council and stood on top of the table because he violated my civil rights because he told me unequivocally that he lied about his probable cause. How is that okay? And because I tell you I'm retired, you just, oh, we're not gonna be able to do that. So that's, that's not fair, man. That's wrong. And the same thing happens to my husband. He's a PI. He gets stopped years ago, pulled out of the car. Driver's license comes back to the car. I have this also on video. Driver's license comes back to the car. Registration comes back to the car. They got him sitting on the curb with his blue lights on, with his legs crossed at the ankle, telling him his car's reported stolen. Stop playing, man. I've given people my PI license when I'm on a case, and they tell me they think it's fake. Stop playing. Are you serious? So, even my partner that I was telling you about, that's a PI that works with us, there are some places that he can work that I still can't work because I'm black, because I would bring too much heat to that neighborhood.
Do you think, kind of my last question for you then,
Sure.
do you think it's gotten better or worse over time? I mean, through your lifetime, do you think, I guess, law enforcement in general, with interaction with people in general, do you think it's gotten better or worse?
I always want to be pro-police. My heart bleeds blue anytime a police officer goes down, gets injured, because I was on the ground myself, okay? And it was a very vulnerable position. But there is no margin for some of the stuff that happens to people and people of color. I don't have any respect for that. If you do that, you're wrong, and let the chips fall where they may. Do I think it's gotten better? I think it ebbs and it flows. I think it's unfortunate that everybody wants to make a situation a YouTube moment or a moment where they want to take a police officer and make them go viral for some bad behavior, and they antagonize the police officer. Nothing bothers me more like the George Floyd protest, where you see a black officer out there and people are spitting in his face, antagonizing, trying to get him to make him lose his cool. That's wrong for somebody to do that to that officer, period, today and every day. But it's also wrong to see a police officer lose his cool and do a vehicle extraction for something stupid. But I've been that person that's almost been extracted from a vehicle for too many times. And my thing is this, I shouldn't have to say to you, I'm retired, for you to treat me like I'm somebody. And that happens time and time again. And I told this young officer, he told me, he said, I'm gonna extract you from the car. I was double parked and I was on a case. And I was like, just hold on, I'll get you my license, but hold on, I'm trying to get some video. He said, if you do not put down that camera, I'm going to extract you from that video. I closed my camera up and I said, hold up, bro, let's have a conversation. I said, I'm gonna need to talk to you. And he was like, what's up? I said, I'm retired at Raleigh. He said, oh, I didn't know. I said, why do I have to tell you that? You gonna talk about dragging me out of a car? And he said, I'm really stressed out about that call I was just on. I said, bro, you gotta be able to separate the two. Take a knee. He literally took a knee. But I was like, you can't go around mistreating people. So as law enforcement, as former law enforcement, we never wanna say we're stressed out. We never wanna say I need mental health help. But I've seen a police officer shoot and kill somebody. I've seen that same police officer be killed by his own child, right? Everybody said the police officer was under some stress when he shot that citizen. What was going on at his house at the time, right? So we have to treat people like people. Give them time for their minds to recover from the trauma that they experienced yesterday. So has it gotten better? Has it gotten worse? I think that answer is quite complex, because we need to put in the trauma of the work. We need to put in how a person was raised and their boundaries and the prejudices that they come to the table with. We need to take into account how people are over-policing and disarming the police. A police officer should never have to run from a person with a knife. If you got a knife and you're coming at me, I should be able to stand my ground and pop. That's it. But you got police officers now that are like, run, like, no, I ain't gonna be able to do that. I gotta go home. So there's a whole lot of variables there. And I think that there's no easy answer, because unfortunately politics has a lot to do with it. My daughter is 23, was compared to a monkey 2 times in 1 week at school this year. And where did those children get it from? They get it from the parents. So has it gotten better? Has it gotten worse? You would think that in 2023, you don't have people calling black children monkeys in an open forum in school, but it's still happening.
Well, Kat, thank you very much. I really appreciate you chatting.
I thank you, my man. Thank you for having me.